So we found that a great way to minimize costs is to enhance the internal controls that are provided by the property manager. So in this video, we want to go through just roughly what best practice guidelines are, the fact that segregation and duties are so important, and just sort of get you a feel for how to monitor what's going on so that you can see how the future videos might be helpful to you. Now, best practices are considered in the industry to be what we would like everybody to do. And that generally happens in large public companies, may happen in government organizations and larger audits, but it generally doesn't happen in not-for-profits. And while the property manager's controls are generally sufficient to protect your cash and to be sure that you don't overpay, it's really important, if you want to keep costs down, to move to best practice guidelines. So one area that we have are the building-specific monitoring controls. These are the controls that get established by the board that are not part of what the managing agent sets up. And we like them to be established by either one or several board members, and they can personalize what goes on at the property and have control over different areas and an extra layer of protection and a better way to monitor. Now realize when we do these building-specific controls, if there's a change in the board or in the property manager, they can be lost. So care needs to be taken to be sure that when those changes happen, that they continue. One of the ways to be sure that happens is to be sure they're memorialized in a written form. So a policies and procedures manual is very important, that they can always be referenced back to what we're supposed to be doing. For the building staff, to be sure that things are accomplished timely and maintenance is done when it should be done, schedules and checklists are vital. That these are established, that they're signed off and dated, and that they're verified that the work is done. It's really easy to accept that things are being done until problems come up and you realize that what was supposed to be done wasn't done. So the series now will go into segregation of duties. Segregation of duties is when we have more than one person involved in a function. This is incredibly important in areas such as cash and also in purchases and paying bills. You want to make sure there's more than one person involved, that there would be a detection of an issue on its own. Some of the smaller properties have smaller managing agents who have limited staffs just because of their size. And it can be difficult to create segregation of duties in some of those situations. So we want to try to make sure that we have proper segregation of duties. Another is that there be a written approval process to assure that items are approved. There are times we find where the sole written approval is that the check was signed. And we have a concern that people are given a number of checks at a time to sign, that they may not specifically verify the invoice and approve it, that they may, out of loyalty and confidence in the person who gave them the information, just sign the check. That's where a written approval is really important. Also, prescribed bidding processes generally don't exist in our properties. Yes, multiple bids are achieved or pricing is achieved, but we don't find the documentation in the system that happened. And sometimes it's the property manager got 3 prices and this is the one we're going to use. So that area is really something that could use enhanced building-specific controls. And employee evaluations and reviews are vital to make sure that people know where they need to improve and that they're monitored, that they improve, and that they meet objectives. And that doesn't always happen in union buildings. So the guidelines offer enhanced protection over watching out for what we have, making sure that we receive everything that we're entitled to receive, and that we are diligent in our spending, and we only pay for things that are items that are our obligation to pay for. So these controls that are specific to your property will minimize your risk of overpaying or receiving lower quality goods or services, and they'll limit the chance that better options are missed. We don't want to miss out on a better project just because we've used somebody else in the past. Another area that's important to best practices is monitoring. And there are differences in the monitoring functions of a managing agent as opposed to a building that has self-management. Most managing agents have a monitoring function in place, but that doesn't mean that the board should not do their own monitoring. In fact, that's really vital. So the board, in order to focus on monitoring, needs to share the responsibilities that need to be done, and then they should be involved to a point as to when money's going out, and that can be checking after things are paid or actually signing checks. It's also very important, board, being involved in looking at bank reconciliation and bank statements. This is a way to verify that the money is there, that you're being told is there. Now, one way to make all this not seem so overwhelming is the use of committees. A lot of boards are now using finance committees, and they provide some very good benefits to helping maintain best practices. They would strengthen control by having more people involved. They spread the wealth of knowledge amongst a number of people. That way, if people leave the building or are not reelected to the board, the knowledge is not lost. They're an opportunity to groom future directors and officers. So we want you to think about, if you're going to use committees, that you look for people who are interested in vocal, and sometimes retired accountants and administrators are really good people who have experience in internal controls and best practices and can help fill in your committee. The rest of this series will go on into a number of different aspects of internal controls, and we believe that you'll find cost savings if you go through the service and you end up implementing the items that are suggested.